Welcome to Decoding the Conflict Mindset. I'm Dr. Debra Dupree, founder and host of exactly what you need to know and understand about people in conflict and the brain science behind their reactive moments. This podcast is designed to bring to you thought leaders from across the world addressing different disciplines where people in conflict often show up. And today I am so excited to bring to you Tim Shurr. Tim has a very interesting background as being a hypnotherapist, and he has used hypnotherapy extensively throughout many years in helping turn around lives of many. His background is fascinating. He had the opportunity to participate post-production in The Secret. Because of his ongoing connection and engagement with Joe Vitale, one of the thought leaders behind The Secret, he's also part of their new release coming out on Our Zero Limits, something you've got to watch and see. So talking with Tim was truly fascinating, given our shared backgrounds in the psychology of human behavior. And over the years, using his hypnotherapy techniques, he's evolved into the Overachiever syndrome. I think that might sound familiar to a lot of us, right? And so he has used his background with his experience, with the learnings from his clients, to create what he calls My One Belief Away book. And so we'll talk more about that. But for right now, what you're going to learn is overcoming the achiever syndrome. You learn what it's about, how to overcome it, what are the signs that you have it, and how do you eliminate it. So don't go away. You must join Tim and I as we explore this fascinating topic that afflicts so many of us. Again, you're here to learn and uncover secrets about the overachiever syndrome and how to overcome it for yourself and to facilitate others in overcoming it for themselves. We'll be starting momentarily. It's not too late. Contact your friends, have them subscribe, come and join us in just a couple of minutes. Thank you. Tim Shurr, here we are finally on the achiever syndrome. And so I'm so excited to share in the next 30 minutes or so for our viewers, just first of all, how you got to this place, because I think we all have dealt with that in many regards in our life. But then also, what have you learned and what can you share with our viewers and listeners today? So Tim, how did you come along this pathway?
Great question, Deborah. I started out my journey as a kid who had a lot of anxiety, worries, fears, afraid of everything, public speaking, or just being afraid of being rejected and not feeling very good about myself. And so I went on this journey to figure me out. I went to school for psychology and tried counseling, and then I got into alternative approaches like hypnotherapy and NLP and anything that could help free me from those yucky feelings that made me feel like I wasn't good enough. And through that journey, I built a practice and started working with people who would come to me to stop smoking or lose weight, or they had anxiety. And so that became my specialty, is freeing people from childhood trauma or from limiting beliefs in their past that are still holding them back today as an adult, even if they've worked on themselves for 20 years. And then I started having people come in that were so impressed that I was helping them with their sales or with their communication or with their own confidence that they were like, hey, why don't you come in and talk to my team? So I started working with sales teams and then customer service, and then it turned into senior leadership. And then, hey, can you build our culture? And so I've been working with leaders and high performers, and then of course lots of athletes and combat veterans, top achievers in entertainment in every industry. And I found that even though on paper it looks like so many very successful people have it all, when you peek under the hood, they're still as stressed out and anxious and insecure as they were before. They thought the celebrity or the money or the fame or the respect would change everything, and it turns out that it doesn't. It helps, but it doesn't give you that inner peace that you're looking for. In fact, sometimes now it causes more pressure because you feel like you have to keep it all going. If you stop, if you get off that treadmill of success, it's all going to fall apart. We even feel guilty about stopping and watching TV at 11 o'clock at night because we should be getting one more thing off our to-do list. And so I looked at that and I'm like, this is like an achiever syndrome. and then it's stuck. And so now I help a lot of people overcome achiever syndrome.
Oh, that's an amazing story. And you just touched on so many things. One, to just emphasize that we all have a story. We all have stuff from our background that has shaped and sometimes continues to shape how we think and view ourselves and the people around us in the world we're in. And I know for myself, certainly like you went into psychology to say, understand what is this human existence all about? Because yeah, lots of fears, lots of concerns, lots of anxieties, and an incredible learning journey along the way. And that's why I like to say, keep learning, keep living, and keep growing. It never stops.
Beautiful. I love that. Yeah. And that's exactly what we have to do. We have to keep going and keep growing. If you're not growing, you're dying, just like in nature. And a lot of us, because of our past and the things that we've been through, are playing not to lose. Right? We're so worried that we're going to be rejected, or things are going to fall apart, or people aren't going to what we do, or that maybe we're not smart enough to pull it off. That's where the imposter syndrome comes from. And it's really surprising how many people struggle with that fear, that deep fear. Learning how to grow and develop that mindset that helps you to play to win is ultimately, I think, the goal for all of us.
Yes, yes, and that reminds me of a couple of things. As you said, so many people will strive to fame and money and all that, and yeah, it helps, but sometimes they are sometimes more messed up than before. And we certainly have lots of examples of that today in both our media world as well as political world. It's time we really owe it to ourselves to take that time to really understand and know that inner self. And again, there's always something to learn and to live and grow. Just getting better and better at what we already do. And I like to think about how can we both gain. And if I'm in a bad place, then I may be affecting other people adversely or inappropriately. And so if I work on myself, then guess what? My relationships with others are going to gain from that. And so more that both gain mentality. And I stay away from the win-win because that's so competitive.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Your energy comes across on others, whether you realize it or not. I was working with a company president one time, and he didn't have any pictures of his family or anything in his desk and his office. He was very strictly business, door was always closed, very transactional. And as we got to know each other, it got into his head a little bit, and it turns out that his father didn't show him very much love or attention. He was very hard on him, and he didn't give him compliments. And so this guy was like, I didn't get compliments, so I don't need them. And so since I don't need them, I don't really give them to anybody else either. Even though most people, especially employees, want that validation, right? They want to feel seen and heard and validated and appreciated for their contribution, and so many don't. As I started to work with him and upgrade those beliefs, he had a whole new way of taking care of himself. And then that led to him improving his relationship with his wife and his kids. And then that led to him opening the door. In fact, for a couple of months, he had his door of his office removed because he was sending a new message to the company that I have an open door policy and you come in anytime you want. And then he suddenly had pictures of his family in his desk in his office, right? And went from transactional to transformational, right? He started stopping and giving compliments. And even though he felt a little uncomfortable, he saw the reaction that people got, that they really appreciated it. Yeah. And you're right. If you focus on yourself instead of trying to change everybody else, you're going to have a much larger impact.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh gosh, again, you just said so much there. When you think about, well, your example was so perfect. His dad didn't do it to him, so he didn't do it. But now he's had an opportunity and really a transformational experience. And that's where it's so important to take a look at that. What influences have I had? What's worked for me and what's not working for me? And how happy am I? That happiness factor. In fact, I just consulted with somebody yesterday just saying, I've gotten so much better in what I do, but I think I could just be happier. It's like, okay, let's work on that. What are those, like you said, limiting beliefs that are keeping us experiencing just that happiness in the day-to-day? What am I doing today? And what purpose does it serve? And how do I engage? And like what your executive experience said, he could see the evidence of acknowledging people right in front of him.
Yes.
Yeah. And I like to say then where our focus goes, our energy goes. And so when he shifted his focus, the energy changed around him.
That's right. One of the things that I discovered from working with high achievers is they don't really focus on happiness. They're not happy or sad. They're focused on momentum and progress. Am I making progress? Do I have momentum? Am I closer to my goal or not? And that seems to really drive them. And if they don't feel like they're making progress, if we feel stuck or blocked or we're confused or we don't have that clarity, it drives us crazy. and you're going to get whatever you pursue. So if you're always pursuing progress and momentum, then that means that every time you get close to a finish line, it just gets pushed farther away again. And then you get closer and it gets pushed far away again. And so there's no satisfaction of getting to the top of the mountain because you're just always climbing. And so you have to change what your definition is if you want to be happy, which I think is a byproduct of serving, right? So when you're in service and you're adding value and you know you're contributing, and then that brings you joy in life, and then we call that happiness. Or another definition of is when you think things should be a certain way and they are that way, then you feel like, all right, I have this, I'm happy now. Whatever your definition of it is, I guess you just got to get clear on what that definition is. I'm sure you've probably helped companies and teams improve their values, right? Their value statements, which become their compass. Most companies will have 3 to 5 values that they live by, whatever it may be. But most people couldn't actually articulate what those values mean. And hardworking, right? And then, all right, what does that mean? Trustworthy, what does that mean? Be the best, all right? And you'll have 500 people in a company, you ask them what the definitions are, and most people will have 500 different answers. Right. And won't even know what the mission statement is. So there's so much opportunity that we have to be able to grow. And I think that the journey is what produces the happiness and momentum.
Yes, stated, Tim. I'd like you, yes, I do. What's your mission statement first? And then what are your values? And again, how are you showing up in support of that mission statement? How are you showing up in support of those values? And that's oftentimes the challenge we face, whether we've read 1,000 self-help books, we can have all kinds of knowledge, but if we haven't translated that knowledge into actions and into words, then it means nothing. Or I shouldn't say it means nothing. You still have knowledge, but many times we have not actually will embody that in our behaviors of how we show up. And then that's what influences people, is that when we are authentic and genuine in what we say actually matches our actions, and our actions really support our words. And that's an alignment piece that is missing for so many organizations. Sounds great, but what does that mean? A lot of times they can't tell you.
Well, you're exactly right. And that alignment piece, you can tell somebody's beliefs, their unconscious beliefs, which are like your life rules that are stored in your brain based on their behavior. So if they say one thing and they're doing something else, it's because they have a belief inside that's driving them to behave in the way that they are. And so people might say that we're going to be trusting of one another, but then act in a mistrusting way because they have a belief inside that I'm not safe. And if I'm not safe, I can't trust people. I was working with a guy that had a family-owned business and a very successful company, but he was a very mistrusting guy. He just didn't trust people. He was always afraid that if he trusted his employees, they were going to let him down or they were going to sabotage him. And because he didn't trust them, he showed up in a mistrusting way. So he didn't empower them. Everything had to go through him. He bottlenecked all the growth. Right? So he was sabotaging this company, even though he was very successful. But he wasn't reaching his full potential, and he wasn't allowing anybody else to either because of this blind spot that he had. And when I pointed it out, he admitted that he doesn't trust people. And well, if I start trusting, what are they going to do? And I'm like, you got to go first and set the example. And sadly, he also half his leadership team were people that were made up of very mistrusting people. And so you can see when you have a team of mistrust, you're going to have, somebody said in that company, they're like, success covers a lot of sins. That's a terrible motto to live by. That's a terrible model to live by, right? Yeah. Just because you have reached a certain level of success doesn't mean that that's the measurement. Where you could be and how you can grow and develop. That's what transformational means. That people find meaning in their work. When they retire, when they sell the company, when they pass it on to their kids, when they move on, they've left behind a trail of leaders that they have developed in the way, on their journey. And most people aren't doing that. They're just showing up for the paycheck.
Yeah, oh, that's absolutely for sure. Yes, I run into that in organizations all the time. And I'm just got to go back to your quote that you said, success covers up all kinds of sins or something like that. Did I get that right? And boy, is that evident in today's world.
Oh, yeah.
Moving on. In your couple of stories that you've shared so far, you've given some examples of where the achiever syndrome is showing up. If you were to name 2 or 3, maybe 4 key signs that people should be aware of in terms of leadership or business owners who are caught up in this achiever syndrome and always chasing that ultimate goal, but the goalpost keeps getting moved. That would be 3 or 4 succinct things.
A couple of signs that you have achiever syndrome. Number 1, you're waking up at 3 a.m. because you're worrying about what thing's not going to work for you or what's going to happen next. A lack of sleep because you can't turn your brain off is often a sign of achiever syndrome. If you feel like no matter what you do, it's never good enough, look at all I've achieved. Yeah, but what if I haven't achieved this? If you're always comparing yourself to what you haven't accomplished and then making yourself feel like it's not good enough, that's achiever syndrome. If you feel guilty spending time with your family because you should be at work, and when you're at work, you feel guilty because you should be spending time with your family, so now you're not happy no matter where you are, that's a sign of achiever syndrome. Yeah, and so if you feel like vacationing or resting or getting a massage is a waste of time, then you probably have achiever syndrome. And if you are always me focused, what's best for me, what's in it for me, how am I going to look, what am I going to do, how do I get the credit, then that's again achiever syndrome, because it means that you want power, which means that you're making up for the fact that you don't feel like you have power, right? And so we will overcompensate in a lot of ways. You see a lot of very rich, powerful, successful people, and they look miserable, right? They never smile. They're always angry. They're always hurting people. And that's not success. They might be rich, but they're not wealthy because they don't get any joy from that. And when you look at their life and their 5 divorces and their kids don't talk to them, and people appreciate them, but more out of fear than out of respect. And so that's another form at the highest level of achiever syndrome.
Okay, very well put. Thanks for those articulating those few key points, because I think any of us listening to this can say, oh, yes, I've been there. Or, oh, gosh, I actually have a couple of those already going on. Or I know somebody else. So that's what that helps so much. There's 2 things I really want to make sure that we touch on. First is, okay, once you identify that you have it, how do you go about eliminating it or mitigating it, as I like to say? We might not always get rid of it, but let's mitigate it as much as we can. How do you do that?
Yes. Yeah, you can redirect the energy and redefine what you're actually chasing after and what the end goal is. So even though I got my degrees in psychology, I found that hypnotherapy was getting results faster than anything else for me, because it allows us to go right into the library of your brain, into your unconscious mind, and find those beliefs and upgrade them right then and there. So instead of taking years, we can do it in a couple of hours. And for some people, I've been able to do it in 10 minutes. And yeah,
impressive.
I had a lot of practice because I was obsessed with how do I get rid of my anxiety. And then when I started figuring it out, I wanted to share it. Anytime something worked for me, I wanted to share it with my clients. And when you do the same thing. And so I wanted to share it and wanted to help people. And then I found that with regular hypnosis, you just get them relaxed and give them suggestions, and they were wearing off. It wasn't lasting, right? And I found it was like cutting the top off of a weed. You got to get at the root and pull it out at the root. A lot of my high performers are smoking weed and drinking alcohol and smoking cigarettes or vaping or coffee or sugar because they're constantly trying to distract from all the pressure that they're under all the time. But you can get high on hypnosis, and in a couple of minutes, you can feel a sense of peace that you don't normally have that's good for you. So I did 16,000 sessions over 30 years. Right, 16,000 sessions, and I tried every technique, every approach, and that's when I realized that it's these deep unconscious beliefs that if you upgrade those beliefs, and here's how you do it, you start with the feeling that they're having, the anxiety, the worry, the pressure, the not being good enough, the fear of letting people down. You step into that feeling, you follow it all the way back to the moment in time where that belief was formed. And it was formed without your permission, without you even knowing it. Your brain made it up on its own. It made up this assessment. And so then it stored it, and then it started using it to guide your decisions at an unconscious level. Researchers have proven that our unconscious mind, our brain, sends us messages and images and thoughts like sometimes 5-6 seconds before our conscious mind registers it, right? And so our unconscious mind is the boss for sure. Even though we pride ourselves on being logical, analytical beings, we're still heavily driven by emotions and beliefs. Yeah, anyway, so you go back to that time with the resources that you didn't have then, and you upgrade the belief. You pull the weed, you plant a flower. Instead of I'm not enough, I'm more than enough. You know, I'm unworthy, I'm more than worthy, and I'm loved, and I'm safe, and I can do anything I put my mind to. And you create a new emotional connection. And then that's just step one. Then step two, you got to upgrade the feelings, right? You got to bring in forgiveness, and you got to release the grudges. You know, when you go through a trauma, it's like getting bit by a snake, a poisonous snake, and that bite hurts for sure. But it's the poison that paralyzes us, the poison, the venom that's left inside, not the snake bite. And so our job is to get the poison out, but most people defend that poison. They defend it with anger, self-pity, self-righteous indignation, justice. If I get this out, I'm going to get hurt again. If I let go of this pain, it means that you got away with it. And so we defend our poison, and then it just makes us sick. Buddha said that to hold a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. So it doesn't work. It only poisons us. So Debra, you got to release the emotions, and that's step two. And then step three is becoming you 2.0. So if we were working together, you'd become Debra 2.0, and you'd have these new tools and strategies so that it doesn't matter what shows up. All that matters is how you show up, and you're going to show up bringing the glory. You're going to bring the glory. I don't care what's going to happen to me. This is what I'm going to bring to the situation. And so that whole process, there's more to it, but that whole process, I'd call my one belief away method, because you're just one belief away from your next huge, significant breakthrough.
Well, I love what you just said, because that was going to be my next question. What is the one belief away hypnosis method? So you just articulated that wonderfully. And so I want to just emphasize to everybody out there that hypnosis is a natural way of going, and it's not time consuming, and it's highly effective in a short period of time. I know that. Yes. Wow. So I'm excited for what you bring to the table, Tim. This is just enlightening in terms of the achiever syndrome, and love that one belief away. And there's so many parallels to what we do and how we think about things. It's always nice to find a kindred spirit on that level.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Tim, I want to bring up, because the incredible work that you've done for over the last 30 years. And I imagine many, maybe not all, have heard about the movie The Secret that came out 10, 20 years ago? I can't remember now. But some really important thought leaders. And now you're part of a new release coming out on Zero Limits. So tell us a little bit more on who you're working with.
Yeah, so many of the cast members of The Secret are in this new movie now that's talking about Joe Vitale's work. Joe wrote over 80 books and won a presidential award for his contributions to personal development. And so he wrote a best-selling book called Zero Limits. And so they made a movie about it. And then he decided to, instead of making it all about him, he wanted to bring in other people that he thought demonstrated what zero limit kind of living is. And so he asked different coaches and healers and counselors to come in and share their stories. And he asked me to do this since I was a coach for him and talk about a high achiever. And Joe is very public about our relationship, which is why I can talk about it. I can't talk about all the clients that I have, unfortunately, because that would be cool, but so confidentiality. But anyway,
yeah, just to say, there's a thing called confidentiality. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, no. So Joe's the only name drop. But anyway, he asked me to be a part of this, and I just brought in some examples from my clients. I have thousands of examples, but I brought in 3 that were really good. And so that movie is going to premiere, I believe, in June 12th in Sacramento, California. It'll be in theaters, and then it'll be in the New York film festivals. And then it'll be in film festivals all over the place, and then it will probably end up on Apple TV and Amazon and stuff like that, where most people will see it. So I highly encourage watching it. I've seen it just because I got to see the early release, and it's very inspiring. It just gives you a lot of practical tools and a lot of hope and inspiration.
That's so wonderful. In a way, the timing couldn't be better. I think we need some inspiration and some hope, and about where we can take our own lives, and therefore positively impact others by the journeys we take. And we sure could use that right now, I think.
Oh, yeah, 100% agree with that. Yes.
Yeah.
If we don't have that, we have what's left. And what's left is a sinful world full of hurt and anger and frustration and not taking care of each other and not taking care of ourselves. And so if I had one thing for people to know, it's just that you're enough. You're more than enough. You're amazing and beautiful and wonderful and full of love, and God loves you and I love you and Debra loves you and you got to love you. And then you got to fill up with that love. Don't try to get it from everybody else. Give it to yourself, fill yourself up, and then share it, pour into others throughout the day. Pablo Picasso once said that the goal of life is to find your gifts. The purpose of life is to then give them away.
Oh, I love that. I hadn't heard that from Pablo Picasso, so I'm going to look that one up myself. That's great. That's what a wonderful segue, actually, because I know that you have a fantastic website and you are definitely giving away. And we'll share the website in our notes, but please go ahead and tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about what you're giving away at your site.
So I asked my community, I'm like, I've got 20 different funnels from all these free trainings I've done over the years. And would you rather have one at a time, or you want me to put it all in one place? And then you can go find the problem you want to solve and then go do the free training, right? Because the whole thing is free. And they said, put it all in one place. So I called it my secret training vault. And then I thought, why don't I just give it to everybody and do what Pablo said? So we'll put that link in the show notes. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast. You got to subscribe to this podcast, and then we'll give you that link, and then it's all free and you can check it out. And it talks about personal growth. It talks about business growth, right? So you can improve your health, wealth, and peace of mind.
Well, that you are the epitome of, again, filling your life up with love and then giving it back out, like Pablo said. And thank you so much for those many gifts. I know I've gone in and looked at it and whoa, I went to my assistant and said, look at what Tim's doing. Can we do something like that? So we're working on it, Tim. They say imitation is the best form of flattery. So yes, I'm honoring you and what incredible work you've been doing and so many things that you have to give people to get over those stories of our lives that have kept us stuck in chapter 1.
Wow, said. That was very well said. That's right. Stuck in chapter 1. I like that a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, people are always stuck in the first part of that movie where the tragedy is, but you don't go to half a movie. Right? No. You stick around, and then the other half of the movie is chapter 2 and chapter 3, and that's where it gets good. That's where you learn, where you discover, where you overcome the odds and win the day. And even then, you don't think of yourself as the hero. You just did what, the right thing to do. And I think that's what makes you the hero. And so I love that, Debra, about stuck in chapter 1. It's really good.
You take it, run with it, okay? Again, Tim, I'm just so delighted with so many things that you've had to say, and I just encourage our viewers and listeners to listen again, and it will be share it with your friends and neighbors, and as Tim said, subscribe so you get access to all this wonderful information. And I just am really impressed too as far as your upcoming participation in the Zero Limits movie, and I know that you pursued that until someone said yes, and so you got to Joe, and it's incredible work, and again, he definitely is demonstrating giving back. So
that is right. Yes, that's true. Yeah, we walk the talk.
Got to, yeah. Otherwise, it's not very real. So, again, Tim, thank you so much for being a guest on Decoding the Conflict Mindset. I think wonderful insights and definitely practical tools that you're sharing for people to navigate through that. Because conflict is not just external. Many times it starts internal. And that's exactly what you're talking about, working on that internal stuff in order to break free and overcome the achiever syndrome.
That's right. That's right. Well said. Thank you so much for having me. It is certainly a pleasure.
Thank you, Tim. And again, for our viewers, please follow us along and share the word. We need some hope and inspiration, and Tim has just done that for us today. Thank you. Well, I sure hope that you gained a lot from Tim Shurr, the best living hypnotist in the world, as termed by Joe Vitale. And again, remember to check out Zero Limits, a movie premiering in June 2025. Tim has much to offer to you. And one of the things that you'll see scrolling across your screen at this time is that he has a plethora of free resources in one place. And so you must visit his website at practiceamplifier.com, training vault option. There are so many things there. I was so impressed and simply amazed. And so maybe you've learned that you have the overachiever syndrome, and now you know what you can do about it. And Tim offers many tools in his vault to share with you and download for free. So don't miss out on this opportunity. Again, another link to Decoding the Conflict Mindset. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Stay tuned for our next guest speaker. You'll be surprised at who it is. Come on back and join us in Decoding the Conflict Mindset. Always things to learn and unravel. Dr. Debra Dupree, founder and host of Decoding the Conflict Mindset. Thank you for being here.